Hey, campfire crew, let's get it on. Strange Encounter at Great Wolf Lodge by Nick Cave 7. My family and I had a weird night at the Great Wolf Lodge and wanted to check if anyone else had a similar encounter at this place. We've stayed here 3 times before with no problems, but this was the first time anything like this had ever happened before. As I said, we were staying at the Great Wolf Lodge and had a suite room. It had 2 conjoining rooms with 2 doors where you can lock the room from either side. The kids stayed in the kids-style room with kids' bunks, and we stayed in the non-kids side room. We kept the doors open for both sides, and I made sure the doors for both rooms were fully locked, including the lock where you can't fully open the door from the outside. At midnight, my son, who was 6 years old, ran into our room half awake next to our bed and was crying, half asleep, sitting up right next to us. I asked him if he had had a bad dream, and he said no. I saw something really scary in the room. It was a big kid with a dark shadow walking around. I ran right past him to get here. Now, I knew I checked the room before we went to sleep and figured it was his imagination, so we all just went back to sleep. Then, at 3 a.m., my wife sat up frantically looking around, and I asked, "What's the matter?" She said someone yelled, "Mom, you honestly didn't hear that?" I told her, no, I didn't, and she asked me to go check on our daughter. So I went to the kids' bunk bed den in the next room and found her out of bed, bundled up in the corner, hyperventilating and full of tears. I swooped her up and she started saying, "Be careful, Dad, he's still in here." I ran her back to our room and laid her out on her bed with my wife and then started searching the entire place. I turned all the lights on and checked literally everywhere. There was no one. The doors were untouched, the locks were still in place, and the windows were unable to open. Honestly, I was feeling the walls and mirror looking for hidden doors. I asked my daughter what she had seen, and she said she was lying on top of the bunk and thought at first it was me walking towards her. But as it got closer, she realized it wasn't me. She said the person was taller and skinnier than me, and it also had smooth white skin and a neck longer than a normal person. She said its skin was paper white and smooth and looked naked, but it wasn't naked, and it didn't appear to have much facial features. I asked if maybe it was a blanket, and she said no, its skin was smooth without wrinkles, and it walked straight up to me and I covered myself up. Then I watched it walk towards the door where your room is. I came down the bunk when it walked away and peeked out the den window, but saw it still walking towards your room, so I hid in the corner you found me in. I tried to stay quiet so it wouldn't hear me, because I thought it would kill me. But then I started panicking and couldn't breathe, and I was still trying to be quiet. I was thinking of running out the front door into the hallway. My wife asked our daughter if she was trying to be quiet. Why did she yell out, "Mom"? Her daughter said, "I never said anything. I didn't want that thing to hear me and kill me." Now, I didn't hear our daughter say anything. I only heard her hyperventilating as I got close to the bunk beds. I told my daughter not to mention what she had seen to our son, even after he told us what he had seen when he woke up. I knew he would be spooked if he found out his sister had a similar encounter a few hours after him. Both of our kids have consistently slept in their own rooms since they were little and have never run into our room in the middle of the night unless our son had a rare bathroom accident. At that point, we figured the kids' room was sketchy, so we just kept them with us and closed and locked our room from the other room. It took an hour for my wife to fall back asleep, and I honestly was spooked by the whole thing, so I left the hallway light on and figured I'd just keep watch and stay awake till daylight. After my wife fell back asleep, closet light I left on turned off and wouldn't let me turn it on, so I turned the bathroom light on. A little later, I heard a loud knocking on the conjoining room door that I had locked. I honestly got goosebumps and tried to convince myself it was coming from the front door, but I knew it was coming from that conjoining room door. I debated whether to ignore it or check. I felt vulnerable laying down without checking, so I went over and looked, and there was nothing, just an empty room, luckily still with the light on. Half an hour later, my wife, still asleep, started freaking out in her sleep. She appeared to be having a night terror, which she's had before, maybe 1 or 2 times per year in the past. I woke her up and she was frantic. She stood up and said she dreamt she'd woke up from a dream in the same bed. She went to the bathroom in our room and came out and ended up being stuck in the other room, locked in with that evil entity. She said I had locked her in the other room and she was knocking like crazy in her dream, trying to get back to our side of the room before the entity got her. Later in the morning, our son woke up and we asked him to describe what he had seen. And he said he saw what looked like the shape of a big tall kid with a long neck that was white or gray in color and had a scary big dark shadow that was walking around the room. He said it was making weird noises like it was speaking words that he didn't understand. And he said it walked right up to him in the bed and had these big eyes that glowed like our cat's eyes looked in the dark. As the sun came out, we got the courage to go into the other room and grabbed all of our belongings to leave. The last weird thing is the room had a weird smell which wasn't there the day before. It smelled like some kind of weird incense had been lit. Kind of reminded me of those stick incenses that were popular back in the 90s. So, I personally didn't see this thing, but both of my kids, 6 and 9, who have never had an encounter like this before, seemed to see the same thing 3 hours apart from each other. They had similar descriptions of it without knowing each other's description. The only thing that differed in their description was my daughter said it appeared faceless. My son had mentioned the big glowy eyes. However, my daughter had covered herself when it got closer, and my son had watched it approach him. So I witnessed both of my kids having similar encounters, my wife waking up to someone yelling "Mom," the light turning off and not turning back on, banging on this conjoining room door, and my wife having a night terror where she was locked in the other room banging on the door 30 minutes after I heard that banging on the door. I've never really been a big believer in hauntings and paranormal stuff, but after all this, I'm left questioning it in my head, and I find myself thinking about it all the time. The Night the Woods Knocked by Lisa R. This is a story my dad told me that happened to him when he was 17, and honestly, it still creeps me out. He grew up in Platkill, New York, and their house was this old 2-story place that my grandpa had built way out in the woods. Like no neighbors for miles, just trees everywhere. If you've ever been upstate, you know how isolated it can get. Anyway, one night everyone else went to the city and left my dad home alone. It was just him, 22, and their German Shepherd, Prince, who was police trained and supposedly fearless. The land the house was on was already known for weird stuff, and people said there was paranormal activity and even some Native American remains somewhere on the property. That night, there was a crazy thunderstorm. Upstate New York storms are no joke. Like the whole house shakes and the woods get pitch black. My dad was just chilling, probably reading or listening to the radio, when out of nowhere, someone started banging on the front door. Not just knocking, but pounding like they were desperate or pissed off. Now here's the thing. There was literally no one around for miles. The driveway was long and muddy. There's no way someone just wandered up there, especially in a storm. As soon as the banging started, Prince, the big tough police dog, freaked out and bolted up the stairs, actually peeing himself on the way up. My dad grabbed the rifle and followed him, and they ended up barricaded in a bedroom on the second floor, with Prince hiding under the bed shaking. My dad sat there thinking it could have been a bear, but what bear knocks like that? And what if it could somehow get upstairs and break through the French doors? And the pounding kept going, mixed with thunder and wind, and my dad was just sitting there in the dark, gun ready and heart pounding. Eventually, the banging just stopped. The storm died down, and there was just this creepy silence. In the morning, my dad went downstairs and checked the door, and there was nothing broken, but there were these muddy prints on the porch. He said they were too big and weird to be human, but not really animals either. To this day, he has no idea what was out there, but he swore he'd never seen Prince so scared before or since. So yeah, if you ever end up alone in a house in the woods during a thunderstorm and someone starts banging on the door, maybe you should just stay upstairs too. What I Saw That Night by Rasgal Rouge. I must have been around 5 or 6 years old at the time. My dad was in the Air Force, so I spent most of my childhood inside Air Force stations in their official quarters. Very safe, very structured. But one summer vacation, we had gone to our village in Uttarakhand, a small, quiet place tucked between the hills. Now, in that village, there's this belief: never go out after 8 p.m., especially if you're a kid. And if you really have to, say to pee at night, always take an adult with you. See, the toilets in those old village houses are usually built outside, a little way from the main house. I wasn't used to all that. In the Air Force quarters, I was used to doing everything on my own. So that night, when I woke up needing to pee, I just went out by myself. No one saw me. I slipped out quietly. The night was unusually silent. No dogs barking, no insects, just stillness. The air had this weird weight to it, like something was watching, but I ignored it. I did my business quickly and was walking back to the room half asleep when I saw her. Right outside our house, there's a big banyan tree, massive, thick roots hanging down like ropes. And there, sitting right on one of the lower branches, was my mom, or at least something that looked like my mom. Her hair was open and long and completely loose, swaying gently, even though the air felt completely still. She wasn't doing anything. She was just sitting and staring ahead. I called out, "Mummy, what are you doing there?" No reply. I took a few steps towards the tree. I was confused, and not scared yet, just puzzled. I was about to go closer when suddenly my cousin, who must have heard me shout, came running out half asleep and said, "Are you crazy? What are you doing outside? Come inside, it's not safe." I told him, "Mummy's here. She's sitting on the tree." He followed my finger as I pointed toward the banyan tree, but there was nothing there. "There's nothing. The branch is empty," he said. "Just the tree, dark and still. Not even the sound of wind." We both stood there for a second, and then he just pulled me inside without another word. The next morning, I asked my mom about it, whether she went out at night and maybe sat near the tree. She looked at me confused and said, "What?" "No, I was sleeping. I never left my room." And that's when the real horror started. From that night onward, every time I tried to sleep, I'd hear a voice outside the window. Soft, feminine, and exactly like my mom's. It would say things like, "Son, Mummy's here. Come outside." It didn't sound right. The tone was off, like someone trying really hard to sound like her but failing to copy the warmth. The The voice was cold, and it always came around the same time, just a little past midnight. After a couple of nights, I started feeling really weak. I lost my appetite and stopped talking much, and I was running a fever that wouldn't go down. When I finally told my grandma everything, the tree, the voice, the figure that looked like my mom, she looked serious, very serious. She said, "That wasn't your mother." That evening, they called an old village priest, someone who does jadfunk, some kind of cleansing ritual. I don't even know what it's called in English, maybe spiritual cleansing or banishment ritual or something. But I remember sitting on the floor as they lit incense, chanted mantras, and sprinkled something like holy water on me while the priest kept whispering under his breath. That night, I slept without hearing the voice. And after a couple of days, my fever went away and I started feeling like myself again. But even today, whenever I think about that night, the image of my mom sitting on that tree, hair loose, face blank, it still gives me chills. Because I'm not sure what I saw, but I know it wasn't her. The Girl Across the Street by Little Ty. When I was a kid, my step-grandparents lived in a little town up in the Oregon mountains. Their house was at the end of a dead-end street, and there was a wooden guardrail painted white with orange stripes at the end of it. There were about 5 houses total on the street, with one house in particular that was noticeably older than the rest. It was directly across the street from my step-grandparents' house. It's safe to say, this house gave everyone a weird heebie-jeebie feeling. My mom and my stepdad would drop me, my full-blooded sister, and my stepbrother off there from time to spend some time with my grandparents. I was about 5 years younger than my brother and sister, and we loved our grandparents. They were always full of adventure and willing to take us to do fun things out in nature. We would hike, grab berries to make pies, have barbecues. It was always smiles and fun when we would go over there. One day, me, my sister, and my stepbrother were playing outside. It was close to dark when we heard the gate of the yard close. There was a metal chain-link gate around the house, and what we saw was a girl about our age, normal-looking, glasses, kind of more on the tomboy side, and a little older than all of us. She said hi, and that her name was Raquel. She asked if she could play basketball with us. We had no idea anyone had even lived in the house because we had never seen anyone go in or out, and this was about our 4th time going to our grandparents' house. I'm sure our grandparents knew her, but never had a reason to tell us because, well, we didn't ask. Being the kids that we were, we said, yeah, and we all just started playing regularly together. Just kids being kids. Nothing seemed odd about this girl for about a year, but one day, things just changed in her. I remember the first weird incident that we had seen. We were up pretty late playing video games on the Nintendo 64. Our grandparents had splurged on us and bought us a lot of candy and just told us to have fun. So we did. Around 1 a.m., we were all getting sort of tired, so we were just kind of chilling and talking while the game was on a pause screen, and the pause screen was black with yellow letters, so it was more on the dark side in the house. We heard the gate across the street rustling around, but the gate itself didn't sound like it opened. I picked my head up to look outside, but I was a little scared for some reason, so I didn't pick my head fully above the windowsill. It was Raquel. I could slightly see her face as she was about to try and hop the fence again. She was wearing red plaid pajamas, a black hoodie, and had a backpack on. But weirdly, she wasn't wearing any shoes. It had been raining prior that day, so everything out there was wet. She hopped the fence and started walking to the dead-end wooden guardrail at the end of the street. And at that point, my sister and brother were both staring out the window with me as well. We were all a little bit freaked out because, what the fuck? She had continued to walk towards the guardrail, hopped over it, and then walked straight into the forest. We were so confused and scared as to why she did that. Well, we chalked it up to maybe she was going to drink or smoke. I mean, she was a little older than us. She was about 16. But it was 1 a.m. in a town in the forest. Eventually, my brother and my sister fell asleep, but I didn't. I waited. I stayed up until about 3:30 to see if I could hear the rustle of the gate, but I never did. It seemed like she had never come back that night. The next day, we all got up to go to the lake for a lake day. It was around 10:30 or 11 in the morning, and my grandparents gave me a bag to take to the trash before we left. And as I was taking out the trash, I looked across the street and saw Raquel sitting on a chair on the patio of her house. There was a full glass of what looked like a reddish liquid sitting in front of her, and I waved, but she just had this disgusted look on her face, like I'm talking evil disgusted. She didn't say hi, and she didn't wave. She didn't do anything. Her hood was up, and her shoulders were shrugged up to her neck. She was looking directly at me, but saying nothing. We had gone back home and heard a story about Raquel from one of our other friends that swore he would never hang out with her again. My sister and this guy from Oregon, his name was Co.Ag, kind of had a crush on each other and would talk on the phone. That's why we even heard about this story. But this is what happened to him. He and a couple of friends and Raquel were apparently hanging out in Raquel's parents' basement, smoking cigarettes, being young teens that they were. Well, 2 of the kids had gone upstairs to do something apparently, and Raquel stayed with Co.Ag and was finishing the cigs. Raquel told Co.Ag she was going to go get the others, went up the stairs, and then closed the basement door and turned off the lights on Co.Ag. He freaked out and was screaming and banging on the basement door because Raquel had apparently locked it on him. The other 2 came back, and Raquel opened it laughing, I guess. He told my sister he would never hang out over at Raquel's house again. Fast forward a couple of months, and we were back in Oregon to visit again. Raquel had seemed normal, so being kids, we decided to hang out with her because she had made a clubhouse in the back of her house. So that was pretty much the best bribe to hang out, of course. So we did. Everything was going great. I stood up and told them that I was going to go outside to take a pee. As I went outside and started peeing, I saw Raquel come out. She closed the clubhouse door and shoved a stick in between the lock of the door, grabbed the extension plug, and unplugged it. I could hear my brother and sister saying, "Dude, what the fuck? Let us out." And Raquel had this crazy, devilish look in her eyes and walked straight towards me. I was terrified. She walked up to me and told me, "If you open that clubhouse, I will hurt you." Immediately, I ran around her and grabbed the stick and opened the clubhouse. I told both my sister and brother what she had said, and my sister grabbed Raquel by the shirt and threw her on the floor and yelled at her. Raquel had this really weird, sinful grin on her face the whole time, like a seriously weird, creepy grin, almost like she was enjoying it. Immediately, we went home and told my grandparents, who then took things into their own hands and walked over to the house to confront the parents. During the conversation, the mom had said that Raquel would spend long nights in the basement, but brushed it off as she was just being a teen. She had told my grandparents that she had been acting very strange the past couple of months, so they confiscated most of her things due to punishment and found that she had been playing with a Ouija board. The mom burst into tears in front of my grandparents, said her daughter was not the same, and they told my grandparents that they would find Raquel throwing up in the middle of the night from sleepwalk eating to the point of projectile vomiting. My grandmother said, "Please keep that away from me and my family. I'm very sorry, we have to go." We left the porch of that house, and I swear I could see Raquel looking up from the horizontal basement window at us. Except, and I don't know if it was just me being a kid, but it didn't look like her eyes. It looked like a cat's eyes. I remember the feeling I felt when I saw it. The goosebumps I could feel still to this day. My mom and stepdad split up a couple of years after this whole thing, so we all fell away from that side of the family and never went to Oregon again. But one day, about 15 years after, I told the story to my fiancé's family at a cabin, and randomly at that time, a number from Oregon called my phone. I truly didn't want to answer it because I thought, oh shit, there's absolutely no way. But my fiancé's mom insisted I answer it to make sure I wasn't pulling the best scary prank ever. I answered it, and immediately a loud buzzing started. It happened for about 3 seconds before it stopped, and then the line cut. Safe to say, we were all fucking scared. I truly think Raquel was possessed. She would talk to that board in the basement, the forest, and God knows where else. I often think about what happened to her family in that house. I'm haunted by the thought of going to Oregon to this day, and I hope I never have to. Hey gang, thanks for listening to this episode of Uncle Josh's True Scary Stories. If you have a true scary story of any nature you'd like me to narrate, email it to unclejosh.truescarystories@gmail.com. I read them all. If you're seeing this on YouTube and you like what you've seen, please consider giving it a thumbs up. Maybe even subscribe. How about even telling a friend about what I'm up to over here? I would really appreciate it. Hit the notification bell for every time that I do upload, and of course you can follow me on social media. Links to that are in the description. If you'd like to support the channel a bit further, find a link to my Patreon page and consider purchasing some Uncle Josh and Campfire Crew merchandise. A link to my storefront at tpublic.com is down there too. Everyone, be excellent to each other. And until next time, be wary of things that go bump in the night. It could be anything. A ghost, a monster, or the guy next door.